3UZ ECUs are easy to reflash. And this comes as news to some people when the traditional saying is that the early UZ ECUs aren't able to be retuned. By the time Toyota got to the 3UZ, they were following the trends with all their other ECUs at that time, and they are able to be adjusted. You can break into them and change some stuff. I'm not doing these ones all on my own. There's a group of us that are working on these sort of projects and getting them better and better and making more advancements. The biggest one, of course, we were looking at is getting rid of the emo. So there are other devices and other ways of doing the early VVTIs and the last of the non-VVTIs which have emo. In the 3UZ, it can be flashed off in the software, making them a really, really good choice to work with. Also, we were adding extra devices on the VVTIs to overcome the fact that you've got a manual gearbox on the back. Now, no need for that. Again, all done in the software of the 3UZ ECU. And improved maps, and better throttle response, and different fan temps. All can be done with that 3UZ ECU reflash. So I got my little test rig here. We'll note that we've got the zip tie battery clamps, but I use a well-charged battery because I don't want it going flat while I'm doing the job. My dongle to connect into the laptop. And I've got this little setup, this little rig here, basically wired like I would wire them normally, but without all the extra. So a couple of relays, fuses. Does pay to have a bit of safety, and of course the ECU. We get in there, flick some information out, put some new stuff into it. And I've got a few of them to do. There's another one over there, and there's another one over there. This one actually happens, this one's a Celsior, and I use Toyo DIY to confirm my ECU number and what it is. And of course some of them I just look at and know what it is. You see this one's got a slightly different number. That one's an LS400 compared to the Celsior. This one is going to be an auto. It's going into a Mazda Ute or a Ford Ute. I'm sure it's a Mazda Ute. To me they're the same. So the loom's getting a bit of a tidy up. And hey, this loom isn't bad, but you'll just see in a few spots. Where did I set it? Up here. Like in here, you can see the stuff's just starting to fall apart and break. So I'm going to go through that now, sooner rather than later. This one's really nice because the loom isn't stuffed. When I do quite a few 3UZs, there's a few broken plugs and a few connectors that aren't looking so flash. And this one, same deal. There's a couple that have a bit of damage on them. So it's a good idea to tidy it up now so the man's going to get a good reliable run. He doesn't tend to sell his cars so quickly, so we'll sort all them out, get it so we can fit it up, and I'm going to be behind the scenes for anyone that's buying my wiring information for a 3UZ. There's a couple of videos with some little tips and tricks that I do as well. On this one, the tips and tricks is going to be sorting the Speedo and sorting the tacho into a normal vehicle. But they won't be for public release, only for my wiring customers. So I've got a big day wiring, enough talking, time for working. While I've been doing the wiring loom, I've also reflashed another one. And I've worked out why they call it a reflash now, when you look at the little tool. So there's another one getting flashed. There's some flashing of lights that show something. See, that's where it's been flashed. So here's the flashing. That's how it happens. There's the flashing lights. And hopefully that one will work. Battery's been well charged. Both of the ones I'm doing at the moment are automatics. But if we're doing a manual, we can also take away all those codes, of course. So it makes it really, really easy. And the 3UZs are awesome for this. Really, really cool. because you can reflash them, and it makes life so much easier when doing these jobs. This process we are developing, it's going to get better and better, and I've got a mate who actually is doing some dyno runs back to back, same car, testing to get some better dyno figures, which is going to be really cool as well. The one I'm flashing at the moment is actually going into a Hyundai van. So that's going to be interesting with a 3UZ with the factory auto behind it. Should be a bit of a beast. When I've got these two done, I will be firing them up on a test engine, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what I've done. And the main engine loom is now finished. We'll show you that in just a moment. So I have a wiring loom now that's actually looking pretty good. It's nearly done. Just have to sort in here with the air conditioning and the fan switch stuff. So I'll get that done, and that's ready to go onto an engine to be tested. I'm just going to have a quick note about shifters, just very quickly. This is the proper 5-speed automatic shifter from the A650, and that's the latest 6-speed one, so they're a little bit different in their designs, and it helps if you've got the correct ones. It just happened at the moment that I'm doing a couple of autos in these. We of course can reflash them to manual, and we can do things like, I just did an Altezza recently where it was reflashed and a little box was added to make the dash work on the Altezza and the air conditioning work on the Altezza. Oh, the box was only needed for the aircon. The dash could be reflashed directly and just connected, and it all worked, including that temp gauge. With this one, I'm actually really excited because I've just had a whole lot of the factory connectors turn up. That's the UCF20, but I've got the proper ones for the 3UZ arrive. That happens to be these ones in this department here. And so these two are deleted, but let's see, this one here is used, and then this one here, that one there is used. So it's that one and that one, the two white ones that I've just had arrive. Really, really cool. Really excited about it. When I'm doing a job like this, I always like to go through and test everything. And it pays to actually plug everything in there and run the power like it's meant to run. Things didn't seem to work. And I go through a pretty well standard test procedure, understanding where things are going. Yep. This test light hasn't had the normal grind of the end to make it a lot skinnier, make it easier to test on ECUs. As you can see in here, I've got the standard plug-in plugs. I've got the standard connectors for the 3UZ, and normally it wouldn't be practical to do that. I'd normally just cut those off and use a universal type plug. However, on this situation, they came on the loom, so I could have recycled the ones that he had, but I put new ones on. But the plan is to actually be able to build this as a plug-in setup for a 3UZ. And that's why I've got these plugs. So I did a bit of experimenting, checking I've got all the correct pins, which I do. And another interesting thing on pins that you wouldn't believe is a 2UZ ECU. This is a 3UZ ECU. And I've got a box with the connectors. They plug in, body shape is the same, but the plugs are different. The pins, the little pins in there on the 2UZ ECU are 0.1 of a millimeter bigger than the 3UZ. Hence, they need a different connector. So even when I'm doing this sort of stuff, I'm finding out new stuff that I didn't quite realise, or little things that can make your life easier when you're going through and doing these sorts of jobs. I'm going to whip through with my test light and check some stuff here. Like the start inhibit and things like that. And then we're going to fire this all up, make it run. It doesn't take me long to run through some basic checks. Here I've actually got an alternator light plugged in because the alternator loom, or the main control wires, are part of the main engine harness on a 3UZ, which is a little bit different to most of the 1UZs. Most of them, it's on a sub harness. Notice these connectors, a whole lot of earths in it. It's one thing that people often miss and they have trouble with because they don't come with the connector that goes on them. Okay, so we have the shifter and that's been plugged in, and I thought I didn't have a test shifter switch, so I went and grabbed one of those. I just happened to have a transmission line around, so I can get rid of the jump wire and actually use the selector. Alternator weight works. You mind?
I don't actually. No mind at all.
I've got the accelerator pedal. As you can see, it's not plugged in, so the ECU will have a freak out. So I can plug it in and it still doesn't work. So you have to shut it all down. Fire it back up and the pedal should work. Woohoo! Oh, I put an air intake on it, but we can hear it run. We can hear the throttle plate moving. So that works. That works. We've got fuel in the bucket of noise. Shifter is not. Oh no, that's not shifter. That's the extra box for the Speedo corrector. See if I can make it go. Doesn't go. It's possibly not in park. So when the ECU sees a start signal with the special start key, it fires the fuel pump. Doesn't fire the starter because I've got the loom disconnected at the back here for testing purposes. Right, let's see if it goes. I don't actually know which ECU this is. I think this is one of my own ECUs. It's not the ECU for this job. I've got a feeling it's actually had a repair by someone local in New Zealand. We might have a look at that. So I'm going to get the ECU for this job. That one. So this is the ECU that I have flashed. And that one I just was working with is giving characteristics that it's got. That it's got an immobilizer fitted. Have we got a throttle? Yes. Have we got a starter motor? This is a really good example of why I fire them up. The immobilizer has been deleted. That's good. But in this wiring loom, there was some damage to the cam angle sensor on one side, or the VVTi position sensor, and other couple of bits of damage. And there's a chance, because this engine, it was really low case, that there was actually a problem in here. So now it's up and running. I'm going to work out which cylinders aren't doing what it should really quickly and diagnose if there's some issues with this loom so the customer doesn't get it and find that there's problems. You right there, Jace? I found the problem.
Yeah, you did.
Yep. Was an injector wasn't plugged in. You were testing me, eh? You were just testing me? Because you also didn't plug in one of the coils. Just to test me. Right, cool. It's really handy when I'm doing a job like this, wiring up an engine, and I get that second ECU to check. This man will see it come through. This is for the H1 Hyundai. I've checked it communicates with my laptop with that software to recheck that, and then I fire it up and make it run. Seems they run better when they've got petrol in them, funnily enough. I also have to remember to put the special 3UZ levelling stick in place. Jason, right? Your eyes are burning.
Yeah, that's fine. DVR.
Yeah, like, his eyes are burning, that was their butts off. Yeah. That one's done. Ready to go to the customer.
You wait. Get it at 4.3. Oh, you keep. That's a big one.
I also go through and check it that it communicates with a proper scan tool, a normal scan tool. So anybody can get in. Means they can go to a normal garage later on, plug an OBD2 scan tool into the system, and it all works. Hey, it's cool having all this neat stuff, like with the laptops and stuff, but at the end of the day, we want to make it as simple as we can for everybody to work on it. This one, funnily enough, has got transmission codes, because we do plan to use the automatic transmission in this conversion, as with the H1. But if we're not using that auto, if we're putting them to manual, of course we do flash them to a manual system. They become a manual transmission, and all those codes are removed. Unlike the VVTi, where we have to add a box to retain the VVTi, in the 3UZ, simply flashing that stuff off solves the problem. I'm also going to go through and check that the shifter works like it should. And the shifter switch, call it all good before packing it up, ready for the customer. Another note on these is the Speedo output. There isn't one. It's through the CAN bus, through the CAN bus of that ECU, which is Toyota multiplex. But we can add extra devices if necessary. We've got a few options. One I like to use is the decoder digital unit, but I've got a cheaper one, and the advantage of the decoder, which was going to be used on this job because he was going to need a tacho change as well, because he had a different tacho unit. Sometimes we use this little cheaper unit, which works really, really well when just doing the Speedo. And we have to use them because otherwise it interferes with the signals going into the ECU, and it's a stuff up. And we see lots of people who have that problem because they don't quite understand what they're trying to achieve. This man's given me another challenge with what dash system he's using. Park neutral switch is on. These are much nicer, these shifters, eh? These later shift units have got a very distinctive detent in them, so you know where each gear is. Are much nicer to work with. Other things that are important to do correctly is the fuel pump circuit. On this one, and if I'm selling wiring instructions, which I do sell them, I often show wiring an extra dummy relay. With this one I've chosen to put a resistor in instead. And another thing that's important is the stoplight circuits. So this one normally has a 4-wire stoplight switch. So if that isn't done correctly, you get codes for stoplights as well. Again, this one being an automatic, it's important that the stoplight switch works correctly because it uses that as part of the gear shift logic. The shifter doesn't work if it's not plugged in. Oh, there's kettle coming. So just to summarise, we can reflash the 3UZ ECUs for both conversions in auto and manual, and factory cars. Auto or manual, improved maps, improved throttle response, deletion of codes, deletion of sub-oxygen sensor codes. So there's quite a bit we can do to them. This one's up and running. Now running on all 8 cylinders. Of course I banished Jason to the naughty corner. He gets to work on the Chev because he was a bad boy for not plugging my coil in and my injector in.
I was testing you.
Your deliberate mistake for the day?
No, testing you.
Yeah, it worked.
Good.
I could hear it.
We're done.
We're going to fire it up one more time. But there's 100 cattle coming up the race, and if I fire up an engine when there's 100 cattle coming this way towards the workshop, there will pretty quickly be 100 cattle going the other way, and my family will be a little bit grumpy with that. And I probably should warn the man who's coming to get this engine that there's also going to be 100 cattle walking up the road coming to the workshop. Feeling a bit stroppy? You get a few more days with your girlfriends. For those of you that were wondering, the cows were playing piggybacks. Nothing funny going on here, just piggybacks. In this plug there's 12 wires, in that one there's 15 wires. We've got 5 in that one and 10 in that one. That makes 42 wires going off to the relays and fuses and shifter and pedal. which meant that I used over 100 meters of wire to build this setup here and make it all work. It's a roll of wire, one of the small rolls of wire. I'm tested, I'm done, I'm going to make it go. This man will get some instructions that I'll tuck in just after this. But for those of you guys that have been watching this, hope it's been helpful. And for the owner of this, who's probably going to get me to finish commissioning the loom into the vehicle anyway, I'll do some quick instructions. Might want to put some earmuffs on, Jace, to stop your eyes burning. Probably actually need to plug the pedal in. It won't go. I don't think it starts in reverse. Right, real quick instructions for Mark. Right, you ready? This is the OBD2 plug. Put the engine loom onto the engine. That's an oil pressure switch. If you're putting different gauges in, then we'll change that wire. Over in this department in here, there's the water temp wires. They're not terminated yet, so you can put in the correct sensor for that. Plug that one in, easy. Buy the ECU, this green plugs with pedal written on it. That plugs into the pedal, easy. This one, that is for the Speedo and tacho adjusting box. That's inside by the relays. Plug these two in, plug the ECU in. And this one, ignition in, start in. Real easy. On this side we've got the two stop lights inputs, the one for ignition in, so when it's got 12 volts when your foot is off the pedal, and that one's open circuit, and then vice versa. That one's open circuit and that one's voltage pedal when the pedal is pushed. There's your oil pressure light coming out. There's your alternator light. That's your speed, which just comes from the box, the adjusting box. That one. Tacho, which is again coming from the adjusting box. W is engine check light, and H2O is the water. Real simple, real easy. Battery power to there. Vroom vroom, make it go. I look forward to seeing this one running. Talk to you later.